This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. I used to ask every podcast guest, what productivity or time management hacks do you use as an entrepreneur? And I don't do that anymore. The work of Tricia Hersey, Ebony Janice Moore, Tara McMullin, and a bunch of other people have helped me, and I think everyone else too, in the last few years, to really question, is productivity the measure we want to focus on? And is that what we want to strive for, being more productive? Or is there something else that we want to strive for or think about or focus on? And I've realized, like a lot of people, that we're more here to heal and play and love and rest and be than we are to produce. And when we do those things, we make it more possible to create the world that we really want to create. I remember Ebony Janice Moore talking on a prior episode about her 80-20 rule that she learned from her coach. Spend 80% of your time on internal work, like healing and resting and other life-giving things, and spend 20% of your time on action. And she said for her, that means she works usually no more than 4 hours on the days that she works. So let's bring it to small business, which is my lane, and that's what I help people with. I find that to create something new, like a business or a new program within your business, we need something different than productivity or time management hacks. One way I know this is that I can see that when I am given a huge amount of unexpected time, I don't usually make as much progress on things, on productive things, as I had thought I would. And I know that's true for a lot of people. We suddenly find ourselves with a huge chunk of time, and we might use that time scrolling or spinning our wheels. A lot of people figured that out during lockdown. What we need to create something new is creativity, creative energy. And to access that, we have to really devote ourselves to nurturing it. So now when someone asks me, how many hours a week does it take for me to build a program beyond private practice and perhaps to then run that program? I could say, well, you got to set aside at least 3 hours a week. It's better to set aside 5, and I would love to see you set aside 10 if you can. And I'll still say that, just to answer the question. But really, I find that nurturing your creative energy for your entrepreneurial project is way more important than how many hours you give it. Now, running a private practice may actually be different for many of us. You can run a private practice with scraps of energy. You can kind of scrape together those scraps and show up for your clients. It's not a good idea. I don't recommend it. And wonderful people like Dr. Janae Taylor and Kelly and Miranda of Zinni Me and many others are trying to help therapists stop burning themselves out in private practice. Eventually, it catches up with you. And as a therapist in private practice, you'll probably do what you need to do in order to keep the lights on, in order to serve your clients. And some of you can do that really well. Some of you just barely, like keeping up with CEUs and notes and bookkeeping. But it is more possible to run a private practice when you're almost running on empty as compared to starting a new project. Here's what Catherine Eastlake says. She runs a private practice and has a program for therapists who want to deepen their embodied practice. She says, I can be fairly dysregulated and settle quickly when a client walks into my room or pops up on Zoom. But when I am writing my newsletter or designing a training, I feel like I need more time and space to ground myself and orient to the process. It is a different energy with different requirements of my mind and body. Thank you so much for letting me quote you, Catherine. And I'll say from my personal experience, running on almost empty kind of works for a little while in private practice because you know how to show up. So even during a non-creative time, you can show up and keep serving and keep making money, even perhaps with new clients. And roughly more time working in private practice can translate to making more money, serving more people, roughly. And again, I don't recommend it. I don't want you to run on empty or burn out. But I say this to say that a move beyond private practice, creating something new like a program or even a new business, you just can't add time and productivity hacks and make that happen. Using a Pomodoro timer is not going to get you there. Making a to-do list is not going to get you there. To create something new, like a program beyond private practice, you've got to access your creativity, and that means listening to your spirit and following your life force in a different way, and then continuing to do that. So I want to talk about a few ways that I nurture my creative energy that I see also working for the people who I know well, like my participants and clients. I'm going to roughly break these down into 5 things. The first thing, I've got to devote myself to the things that make me feel expansive. I get creative energy when I devote myself to playing, feeling my feelings, talking to people who inspire me, listening to podcasts and music that move me, going on walks. There's this one walk near my house that I go on almost every morning because even if I don't feel like it before I go, I know it's going to feed me. If I need to create a piece of content or a new strategy or a piece of curriculum, I need to get into an expansive mindset, an expansive way of being. And when I push from a place of stress or scarcity, I can't find that creative energy. So think about for yourself, who do you talk to who gets you jazzed up about creating something? Maybe you schedule a call with them, or even you leave them a Marco Polo before you jump into working on your business. So the first thing is devoting yourself to things that make you feel expansive. The second thing is deadlines. And I mean like deadlines that people know about. So there's a sweet spot for each of us between having deadlines and having the freedom to move at our own pace. I tend to crave more freedom when I'm facing too many deadlines, but when I'm deadline free, I'm not creating a lot. Like even this episode would not necessarily happen if I had no deadline for it, if no one was expecting it. I recently spoke with my business coach, Claire Pelletreau, and that's actually going to be coming up in an episode in a while. And we talked about how we both actually need a deadline to create our best stuff. This used to be different for me. I used to be so internally motivated that I could set my own deadlines that only I knew about, and they would work almost as well as deadlines other people knew about. But now I've been finding that I'll keep moving those deadlines. So I need to have deadlines that I have shared with other people. So it's finding for yourself that sweet spot on the spectrum of how much freedom do you need and how much of a deadline do you need, and finding on that spectrum what really works for you. The third thing that I need to really tap into creative energy is to make room for discomfort in the creative process. We need to expect doubts to come up. We need to expect really itchy moments when we really have to keep trying. We have to keep writing or talking or moving our pen so that the work actually happens. Sometimes we need to expect a 3-hour task to take more like 10 hours. And I know that I need to sometimes feel like I can't do something, and that doesn't actually mean I can't do it. I just need to expect that feeling to come up. I need to expect to feel like leaving sometimes. And that's part of opening myself up to creative energy, to sit with that. It's really, for me, about letting my frustration tolerance build. I find that I need to have a lot of frustration tolerance to get all the way through a creative project. The fourth big thing is avoiding certain things. The things that a lot of us need to avoid in order to tap into and stay with creative energy. Often we need to avoid social media. Now, not always. Like, I'm going to go ahead and look at Adrienne Marie Brown's meme carousel, and that's not going to stop me from being creative. But scrolling social media, that will very much drain my creative energy. Comparison is something to avoid. the comparison trap can really shut down your creative process. So if there are folks out there who you find yourself comparing yourself to, or if you just get into comparison mode, and that can happen on social media, that is something to avoid big time. Another thing I want to avoid when I'm tapping into my creative energy is expecting myself to get other things done at all, or at least as much as usual, or as well as usual. So I need to give myself permission to do some things badly or to drop the ball on some things and really avoid the expectation of getting everything done. Another thing to avoid is buying tech tools. Buying tech first instead of creating first is what happens when the tech companies are succeeding in their marketing. You probably don't need to invest in a new tech platform to get your project going. And if you're finding yourself like paying for Kajabi, for example, or even Mighty Networks before you create your program, you're probably procrastinating and you're probably not working on the thing that is most important. So avoid paying for tech before you're ready for it. That can be a rabbit hole. Yeah, remember that tech is there to support you. Those tech tools, those platforms, they're there to support you, and you probably need less than you think. And, to be fair, this is coming from someone who uses probably about 50 different tech platforms in my business. But, I invested in them one by one, little by little. I started out super simple. The fifth big thing, and I'm actually going to give you an assignment with this one, if you decide you want to accept it, find or build a community so you're not stoking your creative energy alone. So find a community or build one if you need to of other creators who commit to creating when the world wouldn't say that they have to. So this could be other entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are a good bet for your community because they've signed up for the tricky thing you've signed up for, which is creating what they need to create and finding a way to make good money with that thing. That might be even harder than creating only for the sake of creating. It's definitely different. So find yourself or build yourself a community of entrepreneurs or other creators who are really committed to creating even when no one is telling them they have to. And now I have an assignment ready for you if you choose to accept it. I want you to choose someone you trust who really believes in you and in the work that you're here to create, and someone who will give you a loving kick in the pants if you need it, and write them an email. And I would be honored if you also BCC me on this email. I would love to see it, and it will make me smile to know that you actually did this assignment. What you're going to write to this person, I'm going to give you a script, and of course you can change it and make it your own. Here's the script. I'm planning on doing something brave. I may try to talk myself out of it. Will you please support me and encourage me in doing it? And then tell them what that thing is. What is it that you want to create? And let them know how they can support you and encourage you in doing it. Maybe they can ask you about it every time they see you. Maybe they can check in with you once a week or once a month to find out how you're doing with the project. So I would love to know how this lands for you. I would love to know if any of those 5 things that I do to tap into my creative energy, I would love to know if any of those 5 things are things that you also do that you find helpful, all 5 or any of them. And you can let me know at info@coachingwithannie.com. And I would love to be BCC'd, of course, on those emails that I just told you about. Now is a really good time to get on the wait list for Create Your Program. Create Your Program is a 10-week process. We're starting in September and we'll be enrolling before that. So to check out Create Your Program, go to rebeltherapist.me/create. And so that is where you get support, accountability, and a step-by-step process to create your own signature program and launch it. So get on the waitlist for that, rebeltherapist.me/create. And I'll be back next time with an interview. I want to thank Cosmo Palms for editing this podcast. If you found this episode supportive, please share it with your favorite therapist or healer. That is absolutely how we reach more people. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.